Good morning, everyone. Really excited about the event today. So, as you may know, we have been organizing a few of these webinar peer exchanges around the topic of AI. And today we are really going into AI and sustainability in the board, and we will have a bit of a demo today. So it's very exciting. So if we go into the agenda, we have Tuomas Sirjenen with us here today from Futuris, and we have Aje Berglund. Aje is also in the board of Board's Impact Forum. And then presenting you have Liselotte Engstam, and that is the chair of Board's Impact Forum, and me, myself, the operations director. So if we go very quickly into the agenda for today, we will actually start with Tuomas Sirjenen, and he's really going to dive into some examples. Then we have some thoughts, some reflections from Aje Berglund based on her experience, and a bit of an overview status on AI in the boardroom by Liselotte Engstam. We really are trying to push for this idea that for companies to progress responsibly with AI, it's really important to have a balance both of guidance and supervision, so that we don't just fall on the trap of supervising and monitoring, but that we as board directors can also support and guide the development of AI within organizations. So what we have done is that we have taken the board governance principles that we have been using for sustainability, and we also use these to guide ourselves when it comes to. So another framework that we use is based on a research that Professor Robin Tigland from Chalmers, Liselotte Engstam that is here with us today, and myself, that we conducted a few years back based on a Vinnova fund together with the Combient group from the Wallenberg family. And in this research, we have identified that there's really this balance, like I was saying, between capabilities that we need to guide and the supervision and monitoring of these capabilities, together with this arching umbrella of the board themselves, of the role of the boards, the competence, the structure. So this balance. So what we have been using is these two frameworks as the guidance in terms of the principles and activities. Today, we are really focusing on this idea of the guidance, the capabilities that we can support the development in the organizations, and the board's role, what boards can do for themselves. So very much matching the three principles that you see on the top: subject accountability, command, and board structure. So without further ado, we are actually going to introduce Tuomas Sirjenen, that is the CEO of Futuris. Tuomas, do you want to take it away?
Yes. And I assume that you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. All right. Hey, so first of all, how did I end up here sort of like talking? Actually, I have my background, I actually have a machine learning training from the late 90s, but that was actually what I've been laughing, really bad career choice in the late 90s. So I had to become a business person. But like many years later, I realized that we have fundamental problems in knowledge work. And that has been my focus recently, that how can we renew, how can we do sort of sales differently, customer service differently, legal process differently, whatever those are, and really challenge the convention. And that's what I'm looking to talk today. I will start with a couple of slides, and then I will show demos, and then I will finish with a few slides. But let me start with this. This is my favorite slide nowadays. And I don't know if you recognize, but this is Adam Savage from Mythbusters. And what Adam has done is he has taken the latest and the greatest Boston Dynamics robot dog and put it in front of a 100-year-old rickshaw. And why do I like this slide? Because this actually reminds me of many technology initiatives. that are done. We take the greatest technology, we take the latest technology, but we don't change anything. We don't change anything else. We don't change processes. We don't change roles. We don't change organization. We don't change customer promise. We just actually use technology within the current, maybe 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 70-year-old ways of working. And then we are wondering, why don't we get any impact? The other extreme, what I've seen is this, that actually we start really challenging the whole fundamentals of an industry. For example, in construction, moving from a project-based paradigm into industrial assembly paradigm, which requires then data and AI to actually make it happen. We actually move from having a very high level monthly or weekly schedules into having like scheduled down to hours, which actually then makes everything much faster. And then we are starting to get results. We are getting results of like reducing, for example, cycle time of the construction to half. And every single month is really valuable in terms of financials. But this is not just technology. We need the technology, we need data, we need those to actually make this happen. But the change itself, the impact comes when we really actually start challenging the ways of working or the whole operating models. Or in grocery retail, very traditional business, but there's also opportunities to challenge the convention. Grocery retailers have had traditional choice of between centrally driven organization and locally driven organization, very customer-centric, but no central synergies. Or the central organization has a lot of synergies, but no customer centricity. Then somebody comes and says, we want both. We want to have local customization, customer centricity, and we want global synergies. And the only way to make that happen is put data and AI into the core. And that results in 2 times EBIT. And of course, these are actually pretty nice results. But the point also is here that these are not technology. So the technology is not the most difficult part of here. The technology enables, the technology drives to change, but this is a human change process. This is challenging the ways of thinking of the industry from the past 20, 30, 40 years. And that is quite a different challenge than just technology. So I think this is number 1 from the board's point of view. Of course, in order to get going, we can actually do this kind of what Adam is doing, which just use technology to create something interesting. But to really get impact, we need to actually start challenging some conventions, whether it's like end-to-end process ways or even the whole industry. And I think this is one of the responsibilities of boards, is to actually drive this thinking, set the bar high enough that what is the systemic change that we are going after? What is the way that we challenge the existing conventions because of technology removes traditional constraints? And the board needs to actually ensure both getting action on the ground, but also elevating the thinking so that we actually start thinking differently about our business. But maybe I will now jump to some demos in the generative AI space to actually just a little bit highlight what can be done. So let's take a very simple example, probably a bit boring example already, but there's probably, in the boards, we need to take care of like all sorts of IFRS topics, for example. And I don't know who has patience to read 1,000 pages of IFRS. I haven't found many people who have had the patience to read it, but here's a different way to do it. Instead of actually reading the 1,000 pages, we can just put those 1,000 pages behind the little generative AI system. And by the way, it takes roughly 15 minutes nowadays to create these systems. So it's not very sort of like big task to do. If we have the right technology, it takes 15 minutes. So now we have 1,000 pages, and for example, I can ask some questions from the system. For example, I have bought a business with 100 units, and how to do the depreciation. And it says, however, under IFRS, goodwill is not amortized, but instead tested for impairment. So it actually also handles those tricky questions. But we can actually take this much further. So this is very simple. But I think one of the areas that we've been working a lot is customer service. And quite often the challenge with, for example, customer service is that there's a huge amount of information in customer service. And I'm just like, we are just using now like publicly available App Store reviews here to simulate customer feedback messages in the customer service. But now, for example, if we have thousands and thousands, here we have like 56,000, let's say, reviews, it can be customer tickets. And now we want to understand what's happening on the customer front, or we want to sort of like provide information. Already we've done so that quite many cases that we enable the agents with the information, meaning that agents don't need to search for information from 10 to 20 different systems. It takes minutes, that they get answers in seconds. But we can also use the same information for strategic insights. For example, understanding what's happening with customers. So we have like those 56,000 reviews. I want to know about remote control. What are people saying about remote control? So I can have free-form questions. Now we can make it a bit more sort of like, now we have 22 reviews. Out of those 56,000 reviews, we can instantly find 22 reviews talking about remote control functionality. And then we can actually start reading. We can, of course, take a little bit more. If we take a little bit broader filter, now we have 460. Then we can start analyzing them more. For example, for sentiment, we can analyze them for what are they talking about, negative, positive. And suddenly we start to have real-time visibility into what's happening on the customer front. And why is this also important? This also goes back to the board roles and the management role. What has actually been visible quite often is that the management of the board needs to operate with quite, let's say, old information or infrequent information. But these kind of systems enable real-time visibility, what's happening inside the organization or outside the organization. And suddenly when we are talking about, for example, certain offerings, instead of guessing what customers think about it, we can immediately know what's going on with the customer. Are customers talking about, are they requesting, are they happy or not happy about it? What's the kind of the most important dimensions, and so on. We are getting towards a real-time precision management systems where we can actually start seeing things. Maybe I take an other extreme example of that. This is our own, this is a live system. This is our own knowledge management system. It's blurred so that it doesn't expose, this version is blurred so it doesn't expose the confidential information. But the point is here that how do we know what we know? We are a consultancy company. We are selling knowledge. And after 300 people, we lost track of what do we know. And it's a really bad customer promise that if we are selling knowledge, but we have no clue what we know as a company. So, and getting people to fill in manually knowledge management bases is quite difficult. So we decided, let's try something different already a couple of years ago. So we actually automatically harvest the organization digital footprint from documents, from also that we make sense of those. So for example, we have like proposals. We understand which document is a proposal, which document is something else. We also get rid of duplicates, meaning, you know, this draft two, finals, all those kind of things automatically. We automatically add metadata. And we also, because how we remove duplicates, we are calculating the distance of those documents. Like this is one of those machine learning tools. We can also propose similar proposals, a bit like e-commerce site. So now the organizational knowledge is searchable. But actually, if we take a step further, we realize that people are not looking for documents, they're looking for pages or individual pieces of information. So we decided to do page search. In a similar fashion, we break down the documents. We remove duplicates so that we get relevant results and so on. But then we realize something interesting. Now that we are removing duplicates with a certain technology, we can use the same technology the other way around. We can actually start seeing organizational knowledge flowing, meaning that if we take a certain page, if the page is exactly the same, which just copy-pasted, if it's slightly different, we know that it's a different version of the original one. And suddenly we can start seeing how organizational knowledge flows, for example, from Finland to Germany or Germany to Finland or central units at the front lines, or what knowledge is used by the front line. We also realize that we can actually start tracking our strategy through this system. The organizational strategy defines how our relationship with clients changes. That is, of course, supposed to be visible in proposals. So suddenly we actually ended up seeing that we can actually calculate strategy execution status every single week. And comparing like a traditional futurist approach for tracking and strategy execution was very traditional. So let's make initiatives and let's hope for the best. And after 1 year, we explained to the board that why we are not progressing. But at least now we exactly know in real time that there's no progress or where there's progress. So we actually, again, it doesn't matter whether it's like customer insight or strategy execution or organizational knowledge. We are getting to a situation where we get into real-time situation awareness. First of all, we have primary use cases help people to access organizational knowledge, access organizational networks. But the secondary use case is that we can actually see what is going on inside the company. And of course, we have had for already some time ago, you don't need to actually even anymore search. You can just talk with the data. And this has also turned around how certain people write certain specific proposals. So they get actually 70% ready-made proposal semi-automatically, because these answers are coming from futurist data, not from generic training. This is future-specific answers. And then people can actually, these are not creating the final answers, but they're creating the first drafts. But that's a kind of like way of how we can actually tap into organizational knowledge. And I think this is one of the constraints that we've seen that is not valid anymore. So traditionally, we consider human knowledge as a constraint. We have seen cases where customer service units have been divided into 2 units, other people selling, other people handling claims, because it's too complex for one person to handle both cases. But we already seen cases where we can actually combine these 2 units, or a single person can handle both sales, can handle customer claims, and even can handle simple legal topics, because we can actually augment their knowledge so much more. And here we see also a connection to the board agendas as well. If we can actually make sure that single person can handle cases much broader, maybe we can do some organizational synergies and combine certain units. And these are actually starting to impact the top management topics of, like, for example, organization structure, not just how we serve individual clients. Then maybe I take a next example in the legal space. So like I said, that there's been quite many different organizational processes that I have had also pleasure of working with. And interestingly, legal has been one. So I think that I didn't see much digital progress in the legal space for 22 years, but now it's been very active. And here's a riddle. This is a startup, but this is an interesting example that how might we do contract clause compliance automatically. So here's an example, a live example. So let me upload a document. So I'm uploading a contract. This is a live contract. I select guidelines. So I select our guidelines that which I want to compare it with. And then I submit. Now what the AI is doing in the background is going clause by clause through the document and then making a red line against the policy that we have. It takes a few minutes. So I have a ready-made red line here available. But this document, which is a real contract template or draft, this red line has been automatically made by this system. Of course, we'll probably still want some human to make sure that it's perfectly right, but now we actually get the first draft automatically of the red line, comparing to the contract compliance. And of course, this is a single task in the legal process, but now we can extend the same thing. I was talking about, for example, proposals. Quite many general counsels are saying that sales is generating most of our legal problems. We can also now do so that we take, for example, proposals and we compare each and every proposal against our legal policy. And then we can help individual salespeople to see, are they actually generate legal risks or not? Instead of like supplying their proposal for some sort of separate review or approval, we can actually give immediate feedback for the salespeople that are they actually generating risk, or are they in compliance with the company policies, or even with the compliant with company strategy. So we can actually just bringing knowledge to the moment when people are doing the work. And I would say that a big part of the kind of AI change in the people's view should be that we are helping people to succeed with their work. We are able to augment their knowledge. We will help them with organizational knowledge. We will help them to align their work with company policies. We will help them to align their work with the company strategy and give immediate feedback instead of endless control and acceptance loops. And that's why I think that we should be starting also talking about end of processes, because we can actually end using certain processes, certain control processes, because we can embed the same outcomes into people's workflows instead of having a separate meetings. And maybe I give another example on that front is here. Sort of this is like with the demo data, but you get the point. So organizational alignment. So are we all different parts of the organization working together so that it works? So that is R&D doing something that is aligned with the marketing, or is marketing aligned with R&D, or is operations aligned with the rest of the organization? So here we have a very simple example that we have different organizational plans. Then somebody creates a new plan. Instead of having a meeting, like let's say in 3 weeks' time, to align all these different plans, what we can actually do, we can actually ask systems to compare those. So here's a simple, we have the original plans here, we have a new plan from another department, and we are asking the system to evaluate whether these plans are in alignment, explicitly misaligned, or that there's a suspected misalignment. And a few seconds later, we get actually reasonably good assessment where we have alignment, we have explicit misalignment, and also suspected misalignment. How can we actually use this? So maybe the first step could be that we have a really efficient management process. Every Monday morning, we get analysis that how is company aligned with each other? How is the company, different parts of the company aligned with each other? That would be probably good. But I would say even better would be that whatever I'm doing as an organizational person, I would be able to get immediate feedback. If I'm about to do something that will create havoc in other parts of the organization, if I will be doing something, am I aligned with the company strategy? So I would get this immediate feedback. So I believe that we will get to a position where we can actually automatically ensure these kind of alignment, sustainability, compliance topics, instead of asking people to talk to colleagues and have these separate control processes. These are some examples. And I think the big power comes when we start combining. So we don't just solve individual, for example, legal process efficiency topics, but we actually, for example, address the root causes. For example, that we address that we are not creating legal risk in sales. So we should look much across the different processes, not just improve efficiency of one process if the root cause of that process is somewhere else. And we can use technology to actually, for example, identify when sales is about to create a legal risk that we should be actually fixing during that moment, not later on. Maybe a final example of also sort of like going where we are going in terms of customer experience. So
Can I just ask you, Thomas, because we have a question here in the chat, and I don't think it's totally obvious for people that this is actually application you've built not on the raw ChatGPT, but you actually adapted it so it's special licenses. Maybe you can just say something around that.
Yes. So there are many different approaches that we can use this AI. So one is this kind of co-pilot or ChatGPT for enterprises. So first of all, typically all these kind of that I'm showing here would not directly work with the generally available ChatGPT because of various things. But for example, Copilot, with the Microsoft Copilot that has access to organizational data, we can do certain things. Then we can actually have more and more like embedded AI in the different applications, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's like Office applications, and we can do certain use cases with those. For example, analyzing certain topics. But then, of course, we have these custom applications as well. Like this is a custom application, how it's done. These are a little bit what I showed here, this alignment example. This is a little bit of like, let's say, a nerdy way to do it with this notebook. But I think that there are tools to actually make it more human centricity way. Then this is a custom tool. Again, this PhotoCortex is a custom tool. But they all use in the background, they use this kind of like generative AI from Microsoft, from OpenAI. But how it's actually done, there's a different ways of doing it. Copilot, like certain tools, ready-made tools, certain custom soft applications. So there are many different ways of doing, or using existing platforms like Salesforce to do it. I think this is one part of by the way, when we start talking about AI strategy, that's one of the key decisions in AI strategy, which use cases and problems we are solving with what technology. Are we actually focusing on Copilot mostly? Do we use AI platforms, which we will solve using custom approaches and so on? So that's actually one of the typical questions that we need to answer. But hey, my final example is that and then I will finalize my talk, is that we are using also a lot of external information. For example, job listings to understand what is happening in the markets. We are using news data, we are using patents, we are using investor materials, we are using conference data, we are using job listings. And I really like job listings because job listing data, we are buying it from maybe 70,000 organizations, is the most honest data source out there. So companies are really, let's say, honest in job listings. So we can actually see what is happening in the market through job listings. And this is like, for example, who is hiring in EV charging area, or we can look at like battery recycling, who's hiring. But we can do much more. And let me just a very quick example. So we can do, for example, technology maturity assessment. So we can use job listings to assess, for example, how mature blockchain technology is in insurance industry. And so what we take job listings. We know, for example, that if job listings have only engineering roles, it's low maturity. If it has also sales and marketing roles, it's higher maturity. And there's also a lot of other domain knowledge how we can do it. But by the way, this document that you're looking for is actually not written by human. This is done by AI. The only thing written by AI is this first page. Rest of the document is written by AI. So we trained the AI to know how to interpret, for example, job listing data. And why is this important? I think that as a consultancy, we want to do market research. Doing market research takes time. But also I think that generic market research is not that relevant for individual clients. So where we are heading is that can we create customer-specific market research with practical and minimal cost, meaning that it would only take like a few minutes or hours to create, because currently we can do it manually, but it takes days. So this report is the same code, so market intelligence reports on blockchain in the insurance industry. The same actual code that produced that has also produced market intelligence reports on quantum computing. This is not production quality yet, but we are soon by getting where we are actually able to make customer-specific, highly relevant, interesting market research within 10 minutes, for example. Running the code takes 10 minutes. And I think this is one of the learnings. Cost of individuality is going down. Cost of individuality might be zero in the future. We can start treating individual customers individually or individual employees individually. And I think that will change a lot of organizational sort of foundational thinking, that we need to have segments or we need to have pools because we can't handle the complexity. And of course, from our point of view, we are trying to create a different customer experience. You probably have been part of like on the receiving end of consultancy sales, which is quite boring nowadays, in my opinion. Consultants call that, can we come and have a talk? And do you have something that you need, that you would like help with? But I think what we are trying to build is that every single interaction would be actually value adding, so that we would be able to create value from the first contact towards the customers with these kind of very efficient, for example, market research reports, or whatever those are. And then, of course, combining the external information to our own information, we can start actually reimagining how consultancy processes work. But that's sort of the conclusion of those demos, and maybe then just a few concluding words about how to look at this from the board point of view. So first of all, you remember Adam, then you remember those couple of those cases where the huge business results challenging the whole convention. I would say that we need to talk about full stack. And full stack is not just about technology or data, it's actually processes, people. One of the most important one is that I think where technology can make magic happen is that we can actually change the organizational paradigm. We can become completely different level of customer centricity, or we can have like industrial assembly type of organizational structure, or we can sort of like manage complexity so differently that we can actually be both centrally driven and locally driven at the same time. So I think this paradigm change or paradigm choice is one of the most important decisions when going forward. That are we going to change our paradigm? What is the possible different new paradigms? And then we of course need to align people, mindset, skills, competencies, processes, technology, and data. Going forward, I think that this is a bit busy and ugly slide, but I think this is based on the learnings that how to take this forward. And I think the kind of the message here is that this kind of AI transformation requires all parts of the organization. We have different phases. We have the learning phase. This is when we do prototypes and proof of concepts. This is actually rather easy phase. Most of the organizations are somehow acting on this phase. We can create some fancy looking cases. These are the kind of the Adam Savage type of cases. This is important, but not enough. The next phase is that we start delivering business results. This is already a very difficult step from this learning and discover phase to actually delivering results. So in our case, for example, I think we've been part of close to 50 POC cases so far, and there is like real production cases are between half a dozen and 10. And that's actually quite a lot already in comparison to typical situation that we have actually 1 to 8 of those go to products. But maybe 2 learnings. Number 1, how to get to business impact. Let's find an existing program. Whether we have an existing customer service transformation program or we have existing sales transformation program, let's find an existing program to elevate. Let's not try to create a new program, because tapping into existing program is so much easier than actually initiating a new one. Then the other topic is that leaders need to spend a lot of time, this includes the board, to think about what is our transformative opportunity. This doesn't happen by accident. This doesn't happen by just buying some slides from consultants. Leaders need to spend quite a lot of time to actually think, how can we challenge our business completely? Because then if we want to move to this transformation phase where we get like a huge business results, that takes quite a lot of time to improve the thinking. And then maybe like these 7+2 critical questions. So how to get going? I think boards need to make sure that the organization is getting to creating business impact. So first of all, making the opportunity tangible with concrete success story, meaning some sort of like POC demo or something like that can actually show. But then we need to make sure that we actually chosen the strategic domain, something that actually makes an impact, whether it's sales or something like that. Then I would actually say that this is 101 of change management, but it's quite often forgotten in technology cases. What is the KPI that we are going to change? Is it going to be flow efficiency, cycle time, process cycle time? What is the KPI? And I think boards should be really vocal about expecting the company to actually have a KPI that they are following. And the KPI cannot be saved working time, because that's probably the worst KPI that I have come across, because it's really difficult to actually see that it's tangible, saved working time. Cycle time is good. There's a lot of other good KPIs, but just saving. Then we need to have organizational bandwidth, and we need to find the change engines and so on. This is getting traction. But then I would say the number 9, of course, we need to, the board needs to think about the managed risk, which is like market, competitive risk, IP, and so on. But then also number 9, what is our systemic change? The board needs to start asking the management and themselves, what is that? Yes, we will support existing processes, existing ways of working today, but what is actually our systemic change? How do we challenge the convention in the future? And this requires constant dialogue. And then what I've seen happening is that this is actually a sort of like business renewal phases, that yes, in phase 1, we improve existing processes. We support them with tools. Then we actually come up with this systemic change. We create unfair competitive advantage. We can maybe reduce the cycle time to half or even 1/10. And then we need to actually think that how are we going to use that capability? Are we just going to keep it to ourselves? Organic growth, M&A growth when we do the same transformation? Or are we actually going to productize that capability to somebody else? And this is, I've been part of one case in construction industry where we actually built the capability to build much differently. And then we decided that we will actually sell the same capability to everybody. So suddenly this local construction company became a global tech company after this journey. And I have seen this journey happen maybe 4 or 5 times, exactly with the same steps. So final question, what is the constraint that has been defining our business or our processes or operating model that is not valid anymore? Is it cost of individuality? Is it managing complexity? Is it human knowledge? What is the constraint that is not valid anymore? And then we can start thinking. Maybe my final conclusion is that whatever you do, don't be Adam. Don't just put the robot dog in front of 100-year-old processes and then hope for the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Fantastic. And maybe we can just share that one of the reasons that we were so delighted that you were actually coming back to us again and again, Thomas, is that it's so much easier for the board to start to be a bit more bold in their strategic thinking if they have seen things, if things are a bit more obvious that there are existing cases. So now we are delighted to have Aija Berglund, who is on our board and also works as an executive search partner, and she's the chairman of several of other organizations that has a sustainability focus. So Aija, warm welcome.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Thomas, for such a wonderful presentation. It was breathtaking. You are so intelligent and you have been working with these issues for such a long time. Well, my task here today is to go through, a little bit simplify what you just heard from Thomas' presentation from ESG point of view. Can you take the next slide? So my title here was how AI intersects with sustainability across ESG dimensions. So when we look at the world by ESG lens, as board members, company owners, or investors, next slide, please. We can better understand the strategic importance of AI in driving sustainability and ESG alignment in business operations. And this approach fosters investor confidence, stakeholder trust, and creates long-term value in the company and society. I will now discuss each of these ESG elements together with AI with you. And like as Thomas evidenced, very soon in the near future, it will be possible that with AI to optimize a significant part of the burdensome and consuming processes of companies. For instance, AI can drive energy efficiency by optimizing processes and systems and reduce energy consumption and thereby lower carbon emissions. Like investments in AI-driven energy management systems can lead to cost savings and better sustainability performance. And AI can also enable better resource management by optimizing supply chains, reducing waste, and promoting circular economy practices. And this can lead to higher resource efficiency, reduced environmental impact, and better long-term resilience. And then again, AI helps in climate change mitigation by analyzing data to identify emission reduction opportunities, optimizing renewable energy deployment, and supporting climate risk assessment and adaptation strategies. So all in all, energy consumption will increase as companies build and train their AI systems and tools. And of course, this means that maybe companies need to transfer their operations near to more cheap or free energy. And I have heard like Iceland is one of those places. I don't know, maybe you guys know better, but that was just a hint given to me. But all in all, AI really gives a lot of possibilities, new business possibilities. And there I have listed some elements that you can take to board agenda that you should contemplate on how we cut energy consumption and what kind of investments we need to make and so on. I hope you find them useful. Then if you take the next slide, these two slides were supposed to be vice versa, forgive us. Can you take the next one, please? So AI and social dimension, as Thomas already explained, a large part of boring and stressful work can be done with AI, and the effect of this will be shocking in a positive way. People can start focusing more on being creative and get rid of all dumb and unnecessary clutter, and work will become more clear. Everybody can actually have a personal assistant, which means that the sense of certainty will increase, and you can feel that everything is under control and calendared and findable, which of course improves well-being, your sleep, and you have more time to meet your friends and family and so on. And of course, since the language is no longer some kind of hindrance of communication, the communication between customers and employees will improve. One problem is that, according to Google research, 6% of the jobs will disappear, and this is just the beginning. And that is a theme that the board should also contemplate on, that how do we communicate this with our company staff. There again, I have some elements you should maybe take to board agenda, like board should make sure that AI trainings will be organized, and AI policies and guidelines will be taken in use. And of course, there is an AI-driven community engagement possibility here, and AI definitely will have effect on health and safety initiatives. So the next one is AI and governance, and which means that things will, like transparency and accountability will be improved. And AI can be used to automate and monitor compliance with the regulatory requirements, to reduce errors and improve reporting. And also effect on ethical issues. Ethics can be improved by the help of AI. Thomas probably have good examples on this. And of course, risks we have been talking about already by Thomas' presentation. And of course, one interesting possibility is this has been utilized in schools, I know, and in some companies also, that like AI is one of the participants of the board meeting, so that you have the discussion among the board, and then you make questions to AI and get some new ideas maybe. So what you should take to board agenda is that to make sure that ethical AI government frameworks are in place, and that the AI systems are transparent. These are just some ideas. But that was basically what I wanted to share with you. The main thing is that you get started, you start trying things, you look for best practices. There are a lot of applications and help in the market. We discussed with the team before we started this webinar that, for instance, Clarity is one of those possibilities. Finnish Upright is another one. Of course, Thomas' company Futurize has much possibilities to help you guys. So that was what I had to tell you.
Thank you so much, Aya. And I think that one of the things that we have now as boards is actually to try to drive this combination and try to direct this fantastic new power towards sustainability and towards improving the climate. As actually Thomas had a lot of good examples on, which I'm really glad for. I'll be really quick now. You remember this one where we said that we were going to talk about the accountability and where we direct our efforts. And several of you have answered the AI progress survey, and we're super grateful, and you can still answer that. Here's the result. So this is really focusing in on the topics around board's accountability and competence. As you can see, we still have quite a long way to go on the education part, which is very important, we also need to discuss, as I alluded to, how are we using AI also for the board's own processes? What are we doing to actually become much more smart and efficient in how we are in our work? And when it comes to direct it, we can see that boards are still very unsure even on the maturity of their own organization. So to actually understand how much are we using it so far, what have we done? And that should be an easy fix for every board to get it on the agenda and make sure that you ask. The next one is really the responsibility of all of you here, and that is to try to make sure that the AI is where it makes impact, but also where it makes good impact. So direct it so that it solves both the financial, business, customer satisfaction, but also a lot of the sustainability areas. The other thing that we just wanted to mention, we had another conversation going with another company who showed their responsible AI framework, and we found it extremely interesting that we all talk about how we're going to govern AI. When they were evaluating, the absolute most important one was actually the innovation and business value. So to not miss out. And that was actually driving them in a lot of areas to actually get going with this, and of course apply it, but make sure that you don't miss out. So the fear of missing out was much bigger than the rest. Now, we know that these are the dilemmas. So to actually either innovate and advance, not knowing all of the details of where the impact is, to lead effectively from the board and the management when you're lacking competence, to ensure that AI actually support also the board's own areas, despite competing priorities, and then prioritize whether you should prioritize quick win pilots or actually try to guide it towards more strategic sustainability areas. So now we want to launch the poll where we ask you to prioritize. So in your boards, which of these dilemmas do you find most challenging or hindering at this stage? So which of these are you selecting? So if everybody can vote, that'd be really good for us to understand where do you find the challenges now. So I'll count down to 3 and then we will close it. 3, 2, 1. And here you can see the result. So now I will start with actually just quickly before we go into the breakout rooms, a quick comment from both Thomas and Aya on the poll result. Do you recognize this, Thomas? The challenge here?
Yes. And I was just reflecting, and I think the kind of the how I would also put it, innovate and advance with AI despite uncertainty, is also that this kind of like innovating and changing is quite messy. And I think organizations are not very good in handling messy situations, because I think everybody wants certainty and so on. And I think that we need to find ways to cope with the messiness of changing and challenging the conventions. I would say that's, and I think that of course all the business uncertainty is around. So yes, I think that's really.
So we really need to find ways to also think about how do we govern organization for the future,
Definitely.
which goes to this same topic. And thank you so much, everybody. I'm looking forward to hear that you brought it up on the agenda and to hear how the discussion has been going when we meet you next time. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye.